Hello, Om Shanti. Andrew from Romford Inner Space. Today we'll be doing the fourth lesson of the course, which is the law of karma. It's always a very tricky subject because we're basically talking about laws, and the question can come, well, how do you know that there is such a thing as the law of karma, or as the scientists say, for every action, like the ball hits the wall and it comes back at an equal and opposite same force towards the person that threw it. It's kind of like a boomerang that finds its way back to us. We have this inbuilt mechanism, which is like a search for justice. If we've seen an injustice take place, then we'll always be searching for justice for the victim against the culprit. And, we naturally don't like to see people get away with things. And of course, this has all evolved to a human struggle on being able to forgive and being able to forget, because sometimes we see an injustice take place and the person doesn't see the return of that to that person who was the actual one that created the negative supply line of a bad deed or bad words are spoken. And there's been various songs written where only the good die young, and all this kind of like things that we see in the limited viewpoint. When we actually see the soul in a one birth situation, you can see that unless a human being believes in reincarnation, they can't really accept the law of karma. So we've got this inside of us whereby we always seek to see the one that's the perpetrator of a bad deed, have justice served to them, and many have taken the law into their own hands, which leads to further and further negative karma. So it's not something that anyone can prove, really, because some people spend a lot of their life doing a lot of charity and have bad things happen to them. But it is taught in Christianity. It was, as you sow, so shall you reap. For every action there's an opposite and equal reaction. So the complications come with karma, in the sense of, there's a lot of people that, there was one story about a guy that mowed an old lady's lawn while she was away on holiday, and when she came back, she thanked the neighbour on the opposite side of the fence for mowing her lawn. And so the guy took the praise, basically. He said, that's okay, don't mention it any time, I'm always out for doing a good deed. And the person that actually did the good deed heard this, and he heard him, took the praise of it. So he was quite hurt by the fact that he had done that deed, and yet hadn't had the credit, and someone else had taken the credit for it. So there is something inside a person, although they are doing good, that there's a certain kind of a massage of one's own ego involved in it. And that's what we want to cover today, how it all evolved and how to do actually good karma the whole day long, because we don't just want to limit it, to restrict it to getting the shopping for someone that can't do their own shopping. Of course it's a good deed because it's a charitable action, but when you actually see the whole story, it opens a kind of a minefield really, because there's no register of it. How many good deeds you do for someone, how many good deeds someone else does for you, and there's basically no one is there to say, well, this is worth 3 points and this is worth 10 points. And also really a better charitable action would be where you don't think of it again, when you've actually done a good charitable deed and it doesn't even come to your mind even once. You choose to forget it as opposed to choose to remember it, because I'm kind of taking something away from that for myself then. So basically we want to go back in time really to it, which will be an introduction to the lesson 5 that's coming up on the world drama cycle, because only by seeing the entire cycle of events, the very beginning, the middle and the end, the 3 aspects of time, can you see that why there's so much suffering and yet so much charity being done on the earth today. It runs quite deep actually. So our story really starts off basically with a religion, if you can call it a religion, but it's not really the religion that we see as religion nowadays. It's a religion in the sense of it's a way of life, and it goes back to the deities, basically the gods and goddesses with small g's, when they walked the earth in India, and India was the only land at that time, and all the memorials of these gods and goddesses are in India, that they did exist there. And they were basically people without any kind of negativity, there wasn't like these limited family feelings. There was like a soul conscious family where every component, every human being that lived on the planet at that time were full of love. And so they were kind of the embodiment of love, and their love was not dependent on anyone else's love. So they weren't acting under the influence of showing a loving deed. They wouldn't have even called themselves deities, because a deity is just a definition, and it's the definition of a human being with divine virtues. And of course, the more divine virtues the human soul has, the less it even thinks about doing good, because it is good. So therefore, when it's good, it's naturally doing good all the time. So even when it sleeps, it actually is manifesting a good vibration. So at that time, there wasn't any karmic accounts with other human beings, because they were their own supply line. There was so much happiness because of virtues, which is something Socrates once taught actually, that the more virtues a human being has, the more happiness he had, and he always stuck by the adage of never do anything that hurts your soul. So, he always was trying to cross-examine people to make them start talking amongst each other about virtues. And, when people start interacting and talking about good things, they start to feel good because they are good. And the goodness of the virtues starts manifesting to the surface again. So that's what the deities were all about, really. They were in their own space, and they were the embodiment of happiness, the embodiment of love. So there wasn't this selective family and selective cultures that take place. But what happened is that where there's that level of happiness, there's no, like any kind of a curiosity. ability to search, to look back, to look forward, because the whole lifestyle was one of joy, basically. And it was very much captivated in the 1937 film of Lost Horizons, when these people landed in Tibet, and they came across these people who were just, they've created this city, Minsk, in Tibet, which is full of peace-loving people, and there was gold and diamonds as decorations strewn across the ground. And some of the people who got off this plane wanted to take some of the gold and diamonds back to their place, and the guy from the city said, "Yes, of course, brother, take what you want. It's only decorative. It's of no value to us." And in that city, they had ceremonies whereby, when the physical body came to an end of its natural life, they would be celebrating the new birth that was about to happen. So they would live till 150 years of age, and when the soul was about to leave the body at the end of 150 years, there would be a ceremony of happiness and celebration, and the soul would leave the body, and the body would just be disposed of, and there was no basic attachment to the names and forms of our body, which is what the first three lessons is really all about, actually creating a detachment, a non-attached state to the physical body and other people's physical bodies as well, because it's the souls that we love. They play their role through the bodies, but it's the bodies that we get attached to, and it's the souls, the personalities that we love. So, forgive the Brahma Kumaris for telling people not to love bodies, but they're not telling people not to love. They're telling them that it's ill-informed. Love is being ill-informed, and because of that there's a lot of fear and stress and worry because of loving the form that the soul's in, and it's an incorrect identification of the self and an incorrect identification of others. So let's go back now. There's another part of the story which I'd like to share with you, is that one of the guys who got off this aeroplane, this Dakota, who landed there, he fell in love with one of the ladies there, beautiful lady, and she looked about 25, 26. And he wanted to take her back to his world. And the master said, "Please don't take her back, because she's getting close to 150 years of age now, and it's nearly her time to leave the body," because they had no stress, no worries there, and they lived only in happiness. The bodies lived that much longer in a healthy, wrinkle-free state. So anyway, the master said, "Don't take her," and she wanted to go, and the guy from the plane wanted to take her. So he took her down the mountain, and when they got to the bottom of the mountain, she reverted to 150 years of our age, the time period. So she was basically a skeleton with flesh hanging from the bones, hanging on his back as he was trying to bring his beloved back to his world. And it's a completely different way of seeing things, of course, because everyone talks about death when they talk about the body, and it's just the soul's doorway out and into the next body that it's meant to take. And I emphasise that it's meant to take, because it's meant to take a particular body at the time it leaves its present mortal coil. So anyway, when the deities lived for thousands of years in happiness, what was happening was that because they was enjoying their own happiness so much, the happiness started to become less. So because every human soul eats the fruits of what they create from their past. So they were eating and enjoying the fruits of happiness. But it was a natural happiness. It was a happiness coming from their virtues. And what happened was a curiosity grew inside of them, and they started to contemplate what it would be like to start to involve in a more sensual way of life. And this is very much shown in the Bible, where Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge, the forbidden fruit, and that's what happened, but it was a whole deity dynasty. So once the souls have involved in that action of essential nature, it became a bad karma. So it's a bad karma according to their natural soul-conscious state that they had. In other words, they'd started to invest in a body-conscious, a matter-conscious regime, where these sense organs are start to be used for the wrong reasons. And so what happened was that the soul started to create a vikarma, which is an action that's bad. And once it created vikarma, it has its own momentum. The soul's consciousness has changed. So therefore, as soon as they've opened the sluice gates for the action to take place, there's a certain amount of happiness that they're getting from their sensual existence. And once those actions are there, even though they get the return of their negative karma, because they've opened these negative accounts, at first with themselves, by the body consciousness that takes place. When a person eats and they eat under the influence of greed, then it's a bad karma, it's a bad account with the self. When a person loves and they're under the influence of attachment, then it's a negative karma with the self, and they open accounts with others because they become attached to each other's forms, name and form. And what happened from that, of course, is that people's surnames became important of the bodies, and there started to be a selective family. Instead of having a world family, this is my family that I'm being born into, and I become attached to my limited mother and father. And of course that's when, in the golden age, when the human soul was in its deity state, there wasn't a word for God. They didn't call out for God, they didn't worship God. But once the soul's fallen, it triggers a memory of the one that gave them that power to become divine again. So this is quite an interesting part of the story, because when I came to the Brahma Kumari's World Spiritual University, or Raj Yoga, it was said to me that you're searching for something that you've lost. You already had it and you're searching again. So it's not really a search that the human soul is doing at the present time. It's a research. So in other words, something that we've lost, we lost inside and we searched for outside. And once the human soul is tired of searching for it outside, then they do the research inside to recapture the magic of their own beautiful, unique, alokik, spiritual, incorporeal, non-physical, divine self. And the soul's fallen from grace again and again and again, and as it does, it loses more and more power. But an eternal soul can't really lose power, but it actually gets shifted to the negative. So the pleasures, the soul goes from a state of joy to enjoy. So it goes from a state of happiness to transitory happiness. It goes from a state of love to an attached love that creates a lot of fear, nervousness, apprehension and insecurity, plus the fact that the ego grows. So whatever people believe in, they invest all their energies in that, and their ego starts to get bigger. We would also be in danger of having an ego about what we believe if we weren't becoming soul conscious. So if I don't become soul conscious, all I'll do is I'll develop an ego of being someone that knows, someone that is on the right path, in inverted commas, which is humorous really, because right is a feel-good factor. It's not something that you follow. Right is your feel-good factor. And of course all pleasures of these sense organs, they have an end point where there's sorrow. So the happiness only lasts for a short period of time, whereas the deities held that happiness for thousands of years. And of course once we are body conscious, we start to create body conscious religions, and we don't no longer see it as a way of life, more to a point of what I believe in, and the ego very much gets connected to what I believe. So the human soul starts to create more negative karma, believing that it's pure karma. So a person will do a lot of good deeds, but their ego gets invested in that. And some people even want statues built of themselves. They want recognition, they want respect for what they've done. If their name doesn't appear in neon lights, they become a bit perplexed. If someone else gets a lot of praise when I'm doing more good than they are, then you see how the human soul can become jealous, envious and kind of insecure, and that need for love shows itself very, very clearly that it always was about a search for pure love, which I can't emphasize enough, because that's all you're doing really. You're heading towards the pure love of the source, the Supreme Soul, and connecting with that pure love that's in the human soul in here. So love touches love, and love touches love. And it's kind of a little bit like a pyramid really, is that if I turn my mind towards Baba, towards the Supreme Soul, and just become a child again, a child of God, as the vibrations come, that affects other people this way and that way, and they also start to get connected. So you've got the pyramid effect. So I'm not actually trying to give out love, I'm just trying to become loving. I'm not trying to love anyone, I'm trying to become the embodiment of love or loving. So this starts to settle the past karmic accounts that I've accrued, because the reason why I'm searching is because of the burden of the karmic accounts, is that I'm carrying an unknown sin. Basically, I didn't realise that I had become body conscious until someone told me. And once they told me, I realised that the give and take between human beings leads to more and more sorrow, because while I'm giving, I'm also getting. And that's an important point, is that it's love one, love everyone. So, when I cook food, I would be cooking in remembrance of the Supreme Being, in the remembrance of that love, so that everyone's food gets filled with that love. If I don't do that, and I spend 2 hours in the kitchen cooking and they say it tastes funny, or I don't like this, it tastes horrible, who cooked this? Then I start to feel offended because I cooked it for them, and there's a natural expectation from other human beings. People even say it, do a good deed for someone and then a good deed will come your way. So there's already getting from giving, which is not the original state of the soul. The original state of the soul is to be benevolent, so not a single thought comes of what I've given, who I've given it to, how I gave it, when I gave it, and how much I gave of it. So basically the actual or the thread, the web of karma starts to unravel really when you're just trying to do every action in a soul conscious, a natural conscious, soul conscious state of being, so that you feel like peace is moving you, love is moving you. So you're even actually changing the feelings of the action, because your feeling of the action is, just look at the way people perform their actions nowadays, their karmas, which is what karma means, action, is that they mostly do things to get things out of the way as quickly as possible. And yet when you're being moved by peace, it doesn't really matter what you do, it's more the way that you actually feel inside. And when your consciousness is beginning to breathe again, you know, you've got your thoughts, words and actions, which I explained in the last video was your 3 bank accounts, 3 spiritual bank accounts. And when you're bringing a thought into action, it's elevated action under the influence of soul consciousness. When I become body conscious, it becomes a sour event, because it's full of the wrong I. The I of the body, the identity of the body. It means I've got an image that I've got to keep up. And you get lots of people with this image in their family life that they're the good daughter or the good son, and they've got an image to keep up. And if they stop doing something because they choose to no longer do that because they're busy doing something else, and the person starts to, mother, father, brother, sister, starts to take offence at yourself, then all of a sudden can someone stop that guilt? Well, no, not if they're in a body conscious, image conscious state, because they'll want to keep proving themselves to be a good son, a good daughter. And you don't have to prove yourself to be good. You've only got to feel good. You will serve your parents, you will serve your brothers and your sisters, you will serve your friends, but there's a limit that you can go to before your energy gets spoiled and you actually become pulled by other people, other people's expectations and demands, because that's what happens in the lives. When you feed the flame, then their demands become greater, and you've only got so much energy because you're rebooting your energy now. You're recreating and redistributing your energy. So anything that's connected with the sense organs, the external, you know, when a person is actually involving in an action that is subservient to the sense organs and the role that I play, then it becomes tainted with negativity. Of course, if I do good, then good will come my way, but that's on a very superficial, limited level. You want to create a state of consciousness that actually lasts for many lives, you know, because when someone does good deeds in this birth, they get the return of it in next birth, but that's just one on one. You want a consciousness that is actually serving you for thousands of years to come, from this one life. And so this is where Baba, the Supreme Soul, comes in, because while you're remembering Baba, turning your mind towards Baba and performing your karmas, your actions, it doesn't really matter what you do, because you're not thinking about doing. You're actually connected to being. So normally speaking, the law of karma, sukarma, good action, akarma, neutral action, vikarma, bad action, would be seen as sukarma is something where you mow someone's lawn, take their shopping round to them. Akarma would be a neutral thing that you spend time down at the gym or keeping yourself fit. It's neutral, you know. And vikarma would be if I hurt someone's feelings with this mouth or do something that is defaming. You know, there's defamation, slander, speaking badly, speaking lowly of people, speaking condescending to people. That's all seen as bad karma. But in reality, even when a person's doing good, that doesn't stop them from being capable of doing bad. That was always the problem, is that it's like a ball in a vacuum. If you take a man out of prison after he's served his sentence and he's done wrong, remember, he had a state of consciousness that made him perform the action in the first place. So it's a state of consciousness that is faulty. That's where the whole secret is, really, that none of us knew until the Supreme Soul came on the scene. You know, the source of knowledge. None of us knew these things. Everyone was surprised by these teachings because they were something that wasn't taught in the scriptures. Basically, is that everything that I do in a body conscious state is tainted with negativity. So I've got a mixture going on. So I get good things happen to me, people doing good things for me, but I also have people doing bad things towards me. And we are all good. I mean, just because you've been angry in the past and I've been angry in the past, you're not anger. You know, the only complication comes with anger when you think it's your anger. But, you know, if you don't own your weaknesses, then they're easy to let go of, aren't they? Because it's just something that the soul's been using to actually try to make a stand about something or another, to try to prove something, to try to prove that I am a good person. And obviously when there's not that appreciation, then, you know, is your self-respect still intact? Does it matter if people defame you or are condescending to you? Because everyone's opening their own accounts with their own selves. So it kind of takes you out of the law of karma, really, is that you have faith that the food will come at the right time. You have more faith that the money will take care of itself. You're not being disturbed by these things, because we've also got karmic accounts with money, with material possessions, where we've actually created, made them more important than they should be, and they're only energy, really. The money will come at the right time, the food will come, the water will come, everything will come at the right time. All I have to do is stop worrying and have more faith in goodness, because goodness will work for you then. And anyone that you've had any kind of a negative relationship with, when you're connected with the goodness of the self and you start to search out that good quality in others, you are creating a good subtle account with them, because you're sending them of good vibration, and that vibration will reach them. You're not after anything, You're not trying to make the peace, because that will be made in its own time. You have to have a lot of patience with human relationships. If you keep putting out love, then that love will create a good relationship with every person that you know and every person that you don't know as well, because it reaches everyone. So this is my take on karma, is that you can't get out of that ball in the vacuum whereby a person has settled the account, but they're still capable of opening the account again, because the momentum of a false consciousness is still working on them, and now they've got to work on it. So we do a meditation to finish off with, and then the next lesson will be the world eternal drama cycle. So again, we create the separation of the self, the soul from the body. And as I do so, the body becomes completely relaxed, quiet and peaceful, and all the muscles of the body become soft, pliant and relaxed. And as I center my attention on the center of the forehead, behind my eyes, I feel all the tension being released, all the worry is a thing of the past, and I am the immortal being residing within this body, a peaceful, loving child of God. God is the highest on high, most elevated, most divine being, a source point of love. And I am a child of that source point, of the light of love. My eternal friend is now with me, will accompany me, will not leave me. I see my life stretched before me, in the presence, in the company, in a combined form, holding God in my mind as an oasis of love. And as I hold that love in my mind and in my heart, I am decorating my future with fortune and good luck. And as I hold that love light in my mind and in my heart, my past is forgotten and forgiven. Om Shanti.